Welcome back to Terraria. I know it's Minecraft Monday, but I don't know what my brother did with Minecraft. So we're just gonna play Terraria today, and it's gonna be a chilled stream because I actually have a summer reading project, right? And school starts in 2 days, and I haven't started yet, so I gotta listen to the audiobook because you're gonna find the physical copy anywhere. So that's what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be listening to that while streaming. Yeah. And I already have one viewer, and I know that's not me because I haven't even pulled up my stream yet. Let's see what's going on here.
I hate Jesus. Why the hell have you not done homework?
Okay, yeah, I know, Arrow. I know it's bad, but I gotta finish this. Hey, what's up, Arrow? Welcome. Welcome, everybody. We already have a bunch of viewers. Alright. I'm just gonna get started. It's gonna, like I said, it's gonna be a chill stream. I have to listen to an audiobook,
but... Why do you hate me? Because you weren't following the rules, TJ, and you were told to stop?
Yeah.
Makes sense. That's petty, though. Bellow glove.
Alright.
I can't hear you because it's hailing.
You can't hear me because it's hailing? Dang it. Also, my face cam's a bit different. It's like all circular. I was messing around with my settings, and I decided that that was the best. I tried doing like a fake green screen. I tried to do like a green screen thing with a green blanket. Blankets aren't the best green screen, so it was super weird. Yeah, I just explained. This is better. It doesn't block out everything for me.
To be honest.
Yeah, I know, right? Also, it's helping me see because the facecam blocks out. I've had a problem with it blocking out way too much of the screen. Also, I'm just gonna turn on the audiobook and yeah, it's 7 hours long. I'm not gonna be doing a 7-hour stream though. I'll probably listen to the rest of it off stream. Whatever. Let's just go.
Bip bip Barrio.
This is Audible.
Okay.
Books
I can hear that.
Recording of All Quiet on the Western Front by
Okay.
Maria Remarque.
So I guess I'm just gonna build a crafting.
And narrated by Frank Muller.
There's a rainbow, lightning, and hail.
Nice, bro.
This book is to be neither an accusation nor a confession, and least of all, an adventure. For death is not an adventure to those who stand face to face with it. It will try simply to tell of a generation of men who, even though they may have escaped shells, were destroyed.
Hey, what's up, Spider?
Chapter 1. We are at rest 5 miles behind the front.
I'm gonna search up some Terraria crafting room ideas.
Now our bellies are full of beef and haricot beans. We are satisfied and at peace. Each man has another mess tin full for the evening, and what is more, there is a double ration of sausage and bread. That puts a man in fine trim. We have not had such luck as this for a long time. The cook with his carroty head is begging
Lego
us to
Star
eat.
Wars on
He
PSP.
beckons with his ladle to everyone that passes and spoons him out a great dollop.
Yeah, man. I don't know if I can stream Lego Star Wars on PSP, but if I had it, I would.
I've produced 2 wash basins and had them filled up to the brim as a reserve. In Tjaden, this is veracity. In
Official
Murder,
Spy
it is
William
foresight.
123 Instagram
Where
page.
Tjaden puts it all
URL
as a
Spy
mystery,
William
for he
123
is and
Discord
always will be
server
as thin as a
URL.
rake. What's more important still is the issue of a double ration of smokes. 10 cigars, 20 cigarettes,
PSN
and 2
Username
quids of chew per
William
man.
123
Now
Nintendo
that
Switch
is
friend
decent.
code
I've exchanged my chewing tobacco with Ketsinski for cigarettes, which means I have 40
Thanks,
more.
Arrow.
That's enough for a day.
Why would I disaccord?
It is true we have no right to this windfall. The Prussian is not so generous. We have only a miscalculation to thank for it. 14 days ago, we had to go up and relieve the front line. It was fairly quiet on our sector, so the quartermaster who remained in the rear had requisitioned the usual quantity of rations and provided for the full company of 150 men. But on the last day, an astonishing number of English heavies opened up on us with high explosive, drumming ceaselessly in our position, so that we suffered severely and came back only 80 strong.
1997 Steve Jobs returned
Last
to
night we
Apple.
moved back and settled down to get a good sleep for once. Kaczynski is right. He says it would not be such a bad war if one could only get a little more sleep. In the line, we have had next to none. 14 days is a long time at one stretch. It was noon before the first of us crawled out of our quarters.
In
Half an hour later,
1998
every
the
man had
Sega
his mess tin,
Dreamcast
and we
came out.
gathered at the cookhouse, which smelt greasy and nourishing.
No you.
At the head of the queue, of course, were the hungriest. Little Albert Kropp, the clearest
I
thinker
think all
among
my
us,
ropes in the storage room down
Lance
here.
Corporal. Müller, who still carries his school textbooks with him, dreams of
In
examinations, and during a
1999 people thought the
bombardment
world
mutters
was gonna
propositions
end
in
in
physics.
2000.
Blair, who wears a full beard and has a preference for the girls from officers' brothels, he swears that they are obliged by an
In
army order to wear silk
2000 the world
chemise
died
and to
dead.
bathe before entertaining guests of the
The
rank of
internet
captain
was
and upwards.
created.
And as the fourth, myself, Paul Boymer. All four are 19 years of age, and all four joined up from the same class as volunteers for the war.
In 2001
Close behind
happened.
us were our friends,
And it led to the rest of our
the skinny
downfall.
locksmith of our own
Note
age,
it was
the biggest eater of the
1989.
company. He sits down to eat as thin as a grasshopper and gets up as big as a bug in the family way. Haya Vestus, of the same age, a peat digger, who can easily hold a ration loaf in his hand and say, "Guess what I've got in my fist." Then Dietering, a peasant who thinks of nothing but his farmyard and his wife. And finally Stanislaus
In
Kaczynski, the leader
2002
of our
Super
group,
Mario
true,
Sunshine
cunning
came
and
out.
hard-bitten, 40 years of age, the face of the soil, blue eyes, bent shoulders, and a remarkable nose
In
for dirty weather,
2003
good
Saddam
food, and
Hussein was
soft
captured.
jobs. Our gang formed the head of the queue before the cookhouse. We were growing impatient, for the cook paid no attention to us. Finally, Kaczynski called to him, "Say, Heinrich, open up the soup kitchen. Anyone can see the beans are
In
done."
2004
He shook his
happened
head
again.
sleepily.
Alright,
"You must
Spider, I
all
will
be
ask you,
first." Jordan grinned.
since I am having to
We are
listen to
all.
this, right, for school,
Sergeant Cook's
I don't, try not to comment unless it's
In
necessary.
2019 Barack Obama took a shit.
You too,
In
Arrow. Like,
2005
okay.
my miserable
Seriously, guys.
existence began.
If it's not necessary, please don't comment, because I do have to listen to this. Okay, so, yeah. This is gonna be a chill stream, and that means that the chat has to be chill too. I can't have a bunch. I turned down the voice, and
Okay,
please
then
don't.
stop.
Yeah, please don't spam. Thank you.
still took no notice. "That may do for you," he said, "but where are the others? They won't be fed by you today. They're either in the dressing station or pushing up daisies."
Then why are you
The cook was
screaming if you
quite
have
disconcerted
schoolwork?
as the facts dawned on him. He was staggered.
I already explained it.
"I've
Please
cooked
don't
for
comment
over
unless it's
50
necessary.
men." Kropp poked him in the ribs. "Then for once we'll have enough. Come on, begin." Suddenly a vision came over Tjaden. His sharp, mousy features began to shine. His eyes grew small with cunning. His jaws twitched, and he whispered hoarsely, "Man, then you've got enough bread for 150 men too, huh?" The sergeant cook nodded, absent-minded and bewildered. Tjaden seized him by the tunic. "And sausage?" Ginger nodded again. Tjaden's chaps quivered. "Tobacco too?" "Yes, everything." Tjaden beamed. "What a bean
What?
feast!
That
That's all
was an
for us.
answer,
Each
but
man
okay
gets-
then.
wait a minute.
Emoji neutral
Gets
face.
practically 2 issues." Then Ginger.
Alright,
stood
again,
himself
please,
and said,
don't comment
"That
too
won't
much.
do."
I really have to listen to
We got
this.
excited and began to
I'm
crowd
streaming
around.
because
"Why not that
I can't
devil
just read, right?
parrot?"
I'm not a good reader. I have to do something else while listening, otherwise I
150?
fall asleep or don't pay attention.
Show you, growled Müller.
Right? But if I'm
"Well, I
paying
don't care
attention to your
about this
comment, I can't pay
stupid. Only
attention
issue
either,
rations
so.
for 80 men, persisted Ginger.
I'm not saying you
Kaczynski
can't comment, just keep
Might
it to
be
a minimum,
generous for
please.
once. You haven't drawn food for 80 men, you've drawn it for the second company. Good. Let's have it then. We are the second company. We began to jostle the fellow. No one felt kindly toward him, for it was his fault that the food often came up to us in the line too late and cold. Under shell fire, he wouldn't bring his kitchen up near enough, so that our soup carriers had to go much farther than those of the other companies. Now, Bulka of the first company is a much better fellow. He is as fat as a hamster in winter, but he trundles his pots when it comes to that right up to the very front line. We were in just the right mood, and there would certainly have been a dust-up if our company commander had not appeared. He informed himself of the dispute and only remarked, "Yes, we did have heavy losses yesterday." He glanced into the Dixie. "The beans look good." Ginger nodded. "Cooked with meat and fat." The lieutenant looked at us. He knew what we were thinking. And he knew many other things, too, because he came to the company as a non-com and was promoted from the ranks. He lifted the lid from the Dixie again and sniffed. Then passing on, he said, "Bring me a plateful. Serve out all the rations. You can do with them." Ginger looked sheepish as Jordan danced round him. "It doesn't cost you anything. Anyone would think the quartermaster's store belonged to him. And now get on with it, you old blubber sticker, and don't you miscount either." "You be hanged," spat out Ginger. When things get beyond him, he throws up the sponge altogether. It just goes to pieces. And as if to show that all things were equal to him, of his own free will, he issued in addition 1/2 pound of synthetic honey to each man. Today is wonderfully good. The mail has come, and almost every man has a few letters and papers. We stroll over to the meadow behind the billets. Crop has the round lid of a margarine tub under his arm. On the right side of the meadow, a large common latrine has been built, a roofed and durable construction. But that is for recruits, who as yet have not learned how to make the most
This
of
is
whatever
like
comes their
Asmarin
way.
starting to fall asleep,
We
damn
want
it.
something better. Scattered around everywhere, there are separate individual boxes for the same purpose. They're square, neat boxes with wooden sides all round and have unimpeachably satisfactory seats. On the sides are hand grips, enabling one to shift them about. We move 3 together in a ring and sit down comfortably. And it will be 2 hours before we get up again. I well remember how embarrassed we were as recruits in barracks when we had to use the general latrine. There were no doors, and 20 men sat side by side as in a railway carriage so that they could be reviewed all at one glance, for soldiers must always be under supervision. Since then, we have learned better than to be shy about such trifling immodesties. In time, things far worse than that came easy to us. Here in the open air, though, the business is entirely a pleasure. I no longer understand why we should always have shied at these things before. They are, in fact, just as natural as eating and drinking. We might perhaps have paid no particular attention to them had they not figured so large in our experience, nor been such novelties to our minds. To the old hands they had long been a mere matter of course. The soldier is on friendlier terms than other men with his stomach intestines. 3/4 of his vocabulary is derived from these regions, and they give an intimate flavor to expressions of his greatest joy as well as of his deepest indignation. It is impossible to express oneself in any other way so clearly and pithily. Our families and our teachers will be shocked when we go home, but here it is the universal language. And forced publicity has, in our eyes, restored the character of complete innocence to all these things. More than that, they are so much a matter of course that their comfortable performance is fully as much enjoyed as the playing of a safe, top-running flush. Not for nothing was the word latrine rumor invented. These places are the regimental gossip shop and common rooms. We feel ourselves, for the time being, better off than in any palatial white-tiled convenience. There it can only be hygienic. Here it is beautiful. These are wonderfully carefree hours. Over us is the blue sky. On the horizon float the bright, yellow, sunlit observation balloons and the many little white clouds of the anti-aircraft shells. Often they rise in a sheaf as as they follow after an arrow. We hear the muffled rumble of the front, only as very distant thunder. Bumblebees going by, quite drowned. Around us stretches the flowering meadow. The grasses sway their tall spears. The white butterflies flutter around and float on the soft, warm wind of the lakeside. We read letters and newspapers and smoke. We take off our caps and lay them down beside us. The wind plays with our hair. It plays with our words and thoughts. The 3 boxes stand in the midst of the glowing red field pines. We set the lid of the margarine tub on our knees, and so have a good table for a game of scat. Crop has the cards with him. After every misère ouverte, we have a round of nap. One could sit like this forever. The notes of an accordion float across from the billets. Often we lay aside the cards and look about us. One of us will say, "Well, boys," or "It was a near thing that time." And for a moment we fall silent. There is in each of us a feeling of constraint. We are all sensible of it. It needs no words to communicate it. It might easily have happened that we should not be sitting here on our boxes today. It came damn near to that. And so everything is new and brave. Red poppies and good food. Cigarettes and summer breeze. Crop asks, "Anyone seen Kemmerich lately?" "He's up at St. Joseph's," I tell him. Mueller explains that he has a flesh wound in his thigh, a good blight. We decide to go and see him this afternoon. Crop pulls out a letter. "Cadrek sends you all his best wishes." We laugh. Mueller throws his cigarette away and says, "I wish he was here." Cadrek had been our schoolmaster, a stern little man in a grey tailcoat with a face like a shrew mouse. He was about the same size as Corporal Himmelstoss, the terror of Klosterberg. It is very queer that the unhappiness of the world is so often brought on by small men. They are so much more energetic and uncompromising than the big fellows. Now, I've always taken good care to keep out of sections with small company commandos. They are mostly confounded little martinets. During drill time, Cantorek gave us long lectures until the whole of our class went under his shepherding to the district commandant and volunteered. I can see him now, as he used to glare at us through his spectacles and say in a moving voice, "Won't you join up, comrades?" These teachers always carry their feelings ready in their waistcoat pockets and trot them out by the hour. But we didn't think of that then. There was indeed one of us who hesitated and did not want to fall into line. That was Joseph Bain, a plump, homey fellow. But he did allow himself to be persuaded, otherwise he would have been ostracized. And perhaps more of us thought as he did, but no one could very well stand out. Because at that time, even one's parents were ready with the word coward. No one had the vaguest idea.
What's even playing in the background,
The
LOL?
wisest were just the poor and simple people.
Oh, it's
They
a
knew the war
audiobook I have to listen to for school.
Whereas those who were better off and should have been able to see more clearly
Just watch the gameplay, don't mind it.
were beside
Just keep the comments to a minimum.
joy. Kaczynski said that was a result of their upbringing. It made them stupid. And what Katz said, they thought. Strange to say, Bain was one of the first to fall. He got hit in the eye during an attack, and we left him lying for dead. We couldn't bring him with us because we had to come back helter-skelter. In the afternoon, suddenly we heard him call, and saw him crawling about in no man's land. He had only been knocked unconscious. Because he could not see and was mad with pain, he failed to keep under cover, and so was shot down before anyone could go and fetch him. Naturally, we couldn't blame Cadrek. Where would the world be if one brought every man to book? There were thousands of Cadreks, all of whom were convinced that they were acting for the best, in a way that cost them nothing. That is why they let us For us lads of 18, they ought to have been mediators, guides to the world of maturity, the world of work, of duty, of culture, of progress to the future. We often made fun of them and played jokes on them, but in our hearts we trusted them. The idea of authority which they represented was associated in our minds with a greater insight and a more humane wisdom. But the first death we saw shattered this belief. We had to recognize that our generation was more to be trusted than theirs. They surpassed us only in phrases and in cleverness. The first bombardment showed us our mistake. And under it the world as they had taught it to us broke in pieces. While they continued to write and talk, we saw the wounded and dying. While they taught that duty to one's country is the greatest thing, we already knew that death throes are strong. But for all that, we were mutineers and deserters and cowards. We were very free in all this expression. We loved our country as much as they. We went courageously into every action, but also we distinguished the false from the true. We had suddenly learned to see, and we saw that there was nothing of their world left. We were all at once terribly alone. Alone we must see it through. Before going over to see Cameron, we packed up his things. We will need them on the way back. In the dressing station, there was great activity. It reeks, as ever, of carbolic, pus, and sweat. We are accustomed to a good deal in the billets, but this makes us feel faint. We asked for Cameron. He lies in a large room and received us with a feeble expression of joy, helpless agitation. While he was unconscious, someone had stolen his watch. Müller shakes his head. I always told you that nobody should carry as good a watch as that. Müller is rather crude and tactless. Otherwise he would hold his tongue, or anybody can see that Kemmerich will never come out of this place again. Whether he finds his watch or not will make no difference. At the most, one will only be able to send it to his people. How goes it, Franz? Asks Crow. Kemmerich's head sinks. Not so bad. But I have such a damn pain in my foot. We look at his bed covering. His leg lies under a wire basket. The bed covering arches over. I kick Müller on the shin, for he is just about to tell Kemmerich what the orderlies told us outside, that Kemmerich has lost his foot. The leg is amputated. He looks ghastly, yellow, wan. In his face there are already the strange lines that we know so well. We have seen them now hundreds of times. They are not so much lines as marks. Under the skin, life no longer pulses. It has already pressed out the boundaries of the body. Death is working through it from within. It already has command in the eyes. Here lies our comrade, Kemmerich, who a little while ago was roasting horse flesh with us and squatting in the shell holes. It is still, and yet it is not he any longer. His features have become uncertain, faint, like a photographic plate from which two pictures have been taken. Even his voice sounds like ashes. I think of the time when we went away. His mother, a good plump matron, brought him to the station. She wept continually. Her face was bloated and swollen. Kemmerich felt embarrassed, for she was the least composed of all. She simply dissolved into fat and water. Then she caught sight of me and took hold of my arm again and implored me to look after Franz. Indeed, he did have a face like a child, such frail bones that after 4 weeks pack carrying, he already had flat feet. But how can a man look after anyone but feet? Now you will soon be going home, says Croc. You would have had to wait at least 3 or 4 months for your leave. Kemmerich nods. He cannot bear to look at his hands. They are like wax. Under the nails is the dirt of the trenches. It shows through blue-black like poison. It strikes me that these nails will continue to grow like lean, fantastic cellar plants long after Kemmerich breathes no more. grass in a good soil, just like the grass. Could it be possible? Müller leans over. We've brought you your things, Franz. Kenrick signed with his hands. Put them under the bed. Müller does so. Kenrick starts on again about the watch. How can one call me without making you suspicious? Müller reappears with a pair of airman's boots. They are fine English boots of soft yellow leather which reach to the knees and lace up all the way. They are things to be coveted. Müller is delighted at the sight of them. He matches their soles against his own clumsy boots and says, "Will you be taking them with you then, Franz?" We all three have the same thought. Even if he should get better, he would be able to use only one. They are no use to him. But as things are now, it is a pity that they should stay here. The orderlies will of course grab them as soon as he is dead. "Won't you leave them with us?" Müller repeats. Kenrick doesn't want to. They are his most prized possessions. "Well, we could exchange," suggests Müller again. "Out here one can make some use of them." Still, Kenrick is not to be moved. I tread on Müller's foot. Reluctantly, he puts the fine boots back again under the bed. We talk a little more and then take our leave. "Cheerio, Franz." I promise him to come back in the morning. Müller talks of doing so too. He's thinking of the lace-up boots and needs to be on the spot. Kenrick groans. He is feverish. We get hold of an orderly outside and ask him to give Kenrick a dose of morphine. He refuses. "If we were to give morphine to everyone, we would have to have tubs full." "You only attend to officers properly," says Crump viciously. I hastily intervene and give him a cigarette. He takes it.
Can
"Are
we
you
join
usually
or
allowed
no?
to give it then?" I ask him. He is annoyed. "If you don't think so,
No,
why
no
don't you
joining.
ask?"
Not today.
Impressive feeling.
I'm not even just. I'm not. I don't think I'm gonna let my people who are already on this server join today.
He said. Krupp goes in with him. He doesn't trust him and wants to see him. We wait outside. Müller returns to the subject of the boots. They would fit me
Okay.
And these boots, I get blister after blister. Do you think he will last until tomorrow after drill? If he passes out at night, we know where the boots are caught. "Do you think," he asks, "done for," says Müller emphatically. We go back to the huts. I think of the letter that I must write tomorrow to Kenrick's mother. I am freezing. I could do with a tot of rum. Müller pulls up some grass and chews it. Suddenly, little Krupp throws his cigarette away, stamps on it savagely, and looking around him with a broken and distracted face, stammers, "Damn shit! The damn shit!" We walk on for a long time. Krupp is calm. We understand. He's all red. Up there, every man gets like that sometimes. "What has Cantorek written to you?" Müller asks him. He laughs. "We are the Iron Youth." We all three smile bitterly. Krupp raves. He is glad that he can speak. Yes, that's the way they think, these 100,000 Cantoreks. Iron Youth. Youth? We are none of us more than 20 years old, but young. Youth. That is long ago. We are old folk. Chapter 2.
Oh shit! That was already chapter 1.
It is strange to think that at home, in the drawer of my writing table, there lies the beginning of a play called Song, and a bundle of poems. Many an evening I worked over them. We all did something of the kind. But that has become so unreal to me I cannot comprehend it. Our early life is cut off from the moment we came here, and that without our lifting a hand. We often try to look back on it and find an explanation, but never quite succeed. For us young men of 20, everything is extraordinarily vague. For Krupp, Müller, Lear, and for me, for all of us whom Cantorek calls the Iron Youth. All the older men are linked up with their previous life. They have wives, seem. We had as yet taken no root. The war swept us away. We are able to think beyond it. We, however, have been gripped by it and do not know what the end may be. We know only that in some strange and melancholy way we have become a wasteland. All the same, we are not often sad. Though Müller would be delighted to have Kemmerich's boots, he is really quite as sympathetic as another who could not bear to think of such a thing for grief. He merely sees things clearly. Were Kemmerich able to make any use of the boots, then Müller would rather go barefoot over barbed wire than scheme how to get hold of them. But as it is, the boots are quite inappropriate to Kemmerich's circumstances, whereas Müller can make good use of them. Kemmerich will die. It is immaterial who gets them. Why then should Müller not succeed? He has more right than the hospital ordered. When Kemmerich is dead, it will be too late. Therefore, Müller is already on the watch. We have lost all sense of other considerations because they are artificial. Only the facts are real and important for us, and good boots are scarce. Once it was different. When we went to the district commandant to enlist, we were a class of 20 young men, many of whom proudly shaved for the first time before going to the barracks. We had no definite plans for our future. Our thoughts of a career and occupation were as yet of too unpractical a character to furnish any scheme of life. We were still crammed full of vague ideas which gave to life, and to the war also, an ideal and almost romantic character. We were trained in the army for 10 weeks, and in this time more profoundly influenced than by 10 years at school. We learned that a bright button is weightier than 4 volumes of Schopenhauer. At first astonished, then embittered, and finally indifferent, we recognize that what matters is not the mind, but the boot brush. Not intelligence, but the system. Not freedom, but drill. We became soldiers with eagerness and enthusiasm, but they have done everything to knock that out of us. After 3 weeks, it was no longer incomprehensible to us that a braided postman should have more authority over us than had formerly our parents, our teachers, and the whole gamut of culture from Plato to Goethe. With our young, awakened eyes, we saw that the classical conception of the fatherland held by our teachers resolved itself here into a renunciation of personality such as one would not ask of the meanest servants. Salutes, springing to attention, parade marches, presenting arms, right wheel, left wheel, clicking the heels, insults, and 1,000 pettifogging details. We had fancied our task would be different, only to find we were to be trained for heroism as though we were circus clowns. But we soon accustomed ourselves to it. We learned, in fact, that some of these things were necessary, but the rest merely show. Soldiers have a fine nose for such distinctions. By 3s and 4s, our class was scattered over the platoons amongst Frisian fishermen, peasants, and laborers with whom we soon made friends. Kropp, Müller, Kemmerich, and I went to number 9 platoon, under Corporal Himmelstoss. He had the reputation of being the strictest disciplinarian in the camp, and was proud. He was a small, undersized fellow with a foxy, waxed mustache, who had seen 12 years' service and was, in civil life, a postman. He had a special dislike of Kropp, Jagen, Vestus, and me, because he sensed a quiet defiance. I have remade his bed 14 times in one morning. Each time he had some fault to find and pulled it to pieces. I have kneaded a pair of prehistoric boots that were as hard as iron for 20 hours with intervals, of course, until they became as soft as butter, and not even Himmelstoss could find anything more to do to them. Under his orders, I have scrubbed out the corporal's mess with a toothbrush. Kropp and I were given the job of clearing the barrack square of snow with a hand broom and a dustpan, and we would have gone on till we were frozen had not a lieutenant accidentally appeared, who who sent us off and hauled Himmelstoss over the cold. But the only result of this was to make Himmelstoss hate us more. For 6 weeks consecutively, I did guard every Sunday and was hut orderly for the same length of time. With a full pack and rifle, I had to practice on a wet, soft, newly plowed field that prepared to advance, and to lie down until I was one lump of mud and finally collapsed. 4 hours later, I had to report to Himmelstoss with my clothes scrubbed clean, my hands chafed and bleeding. Together with Krop, Lesters, and Chowden, I have stood at attention in a hard frost without gloves for a quarter of an hour at a stretch, while Himmelstoss watched for the slightest movement of our bare fingers on the steel barrel of the rifle. I have run 8 times from the top floor of the barracks down to the courtyard in my shirt at 2 o'clock in the morning because my drawers projected 3 inches beyond the edge of the stool on which one had to stack all one's things. Alongside me ran the corporal, Himmelstoss, trod on my bare toes. At bayonet practice, I had constantly to fight with Himmelstoss, I with a heavy iron weapon, whilst he had a handy wooden one with which he easily struck my arms till they were black and blue. Once, indeed, I became so infuriated that I ran at him blindly and gave him a mighty jab in the stomach and knocked him down. When he reported me, the company commander laughed at him and told him he ought to keep his eyes open. He understood Himmelstoss, and apparently was not displeased with his discomfiture. I became a past master on the parallel bars and excelled at physical jerks. We have trembled at the mere sound of his voice, but his runaway post horse never got the better of us. One Sunday, as Krop and I were lugging a latrine bucket on a pole across the barrack yard, Himmelstoss came by all polished up and spry for going out. He planted himself in front of us and asked how we liked the job. In spite of ourselves, we tripped and emptied the bucket over his legs. He raved, but the limit had been reached. "That means clink," he yelled. But Krop had had enough. "There'll be an inquiry first," he said, "and then we'll unload." "Mind how you speak to a non-commissioned officer," bawled Himmelstoss. "Have you lost your senses? You wait till you're spoken to. What will you do anyway?" "Show you up, Corporal," said Krop, his thumbs in line with the seams of his trousers. Himmelstoss saw that we meant it, and went off without saying a word. But before he disappeared, he growled, "You'll drink this." But that was the end of his authority. He tried it on once more in the plowed field with his "Prepare to advance! Advance! And lie down!" We obeyed each order, since an order's an order and has to be obeyed. But we did it so slowly that Himmelstoss became desperate. Carefully we went down on our knees, then on our hands, and so on. In the meantime, quite infuriated, he had given another command. But before we had even begun to sweat, he was hoarse. After that, he left us in peace. He did indeed always refer to us as swine, but there was, nevertheless, a certain respect in his tone. There were many other staff corporals, the majority of whom were more decent. But above all, each of them wanted to keep his good job there as long as possible, and this he could do only by being strict with the recruits. So we were put through every conceivable refinement of bad soldiery, till we often howled with rage. Many of us became ill with it. Wolf actually died of inflammation of the lung. But we would have felt ridiculous had we hauled down our colors. We became hard, suspicious, pitiless, vicious, tough. And that was good, but these attributes were just what we lacked. Had we gone into the trenches without this period of training, most of us would certainly have gone mad. Only thus were we prepared for what awaited us. We did not break down, but adapted ourselves. Our 20 years, which made many another thing so grievous, helped us in it. But by far the most important result was that it awakened in us a strong, practical sense of esprit de corps, which in the field developed into the finest thing that arose out of the war: comradeship. I sit by Kenneric's bed. He is sinking steadily. Around us is great commotion. A hospital train has arrived, and the wounded fit to be moved are being selected. The doctor passes by Kemmerich's bed without once looking at it. Next time, Franz, he said. He raises himself on the pillow with his elbows. They have amputated my leg. He knows it too. I nod and answer, you must be thankful you've come off with that. He is silent. I resume. It might have been both legs, Franz. Wegeler has lost his right arm. That's much worse. Besides, you will be going home. He looks at me. You think so? Of course. You think so? He repeats. Sure, Franz. Once you've got over the operation. He beckons me to bend down. I stoop over him and he whispers, I don't think so. Don't talk rubbish, Franz. In a couple of days you'll see for yourself. What is it anyway, an amputated leg? Here they patch up far worse things than that. He lifts one hand. Look here, though. These fingers. That's the result of the operation. Just eat decently and you'll soon be well again. Do they look after you properly? He points to a dish that is still half full. I get excited. Franz, you must eat. Eating is the main thing. That looks good, too. He turns away. After a pause, he says slowly, I wanted to become head forester once. So you may still, I assure you. There are splendid artificial limbs now. You'd hardly know there was anything missing. They are fixed onto the muscles. You can move the fingers and work and even write with an artificial hand. And besides, they will always be making new improvements. For a while, he lies still. Then he says, you can take my lace-up boots with you for a minute. I nod and wonder what to say to encourage him. His lips have fallen away. His mouth has become larger. His teeth stick out and look as though they were made of chalk. The flesh melts. The forehead bulges more prominently. The cheekbones protrude. The skeleton is working itself through. The eyes are already sunken. In a couple of hours it will be over. He is not the first that I have seen thus. But we grew up together. That always makes it different. I have copied his essays. At school he used to wear a brown coat with a belt and shiny sleeves. He was the only one of us, too, who could do the giant's turn on the horizontal bar. His hair flew in his face like silk. Cantorek was proud of him, but he couldn't stand cigarettes. His skin was very white. He had something of the girl about him. I glance at my boots. They're big and clumsy. The breeches are tucked in. And standing up one looks well built and powerful with these great drain pipes. But when we go bathing and strip, suddenly we have slender legs again and slight shoulders. We're no longer soldiers, but little more than boys.
Are you gonna kill the wall of
No one would
glass?
believe that we could carry packs.
Eventually, not this stream though. This stream is just a chill stream. I'm just gonna be building.
Civilians and almost feel ourselves to be so. When bathing, Franz Kemmerick looked as slight and frail as a child.
Oops, I didn't mean to grab that. Okay.
There he lies then. But why? The whole world ought to pass by this bed and say, that is Franz Kemmerick, 19 and a half years old. He doesn't want to die. Let him not die. My thoughts became confused. This atmosphere of carbolic and gangrene clogs the lungs. It is a thick gruel. It suffocates. It grows dark. Kemmerick's face changes color. It lifts from the pillow and is so pale that it gleams. The mouth moves slightly. I draw near to him. He whispers, if you find my watch, send it home. I do not reply. It is no use anymore. No one can console him. I am wretched with helplessness. This forehead with its hollow temples, this mouth that now seems all teeth, this sharp nose, and the fat, weeping woman at home to whom I must write. If only the letter were sent off home. Hospital orderlies go to and fro with bottles and pails. One of them comes up, casts a glance at Kemmerig, and goes away again. You can see he is waiting. Apparently he wants the bed. I bend over Franz and talk to him as though that could save him. Perhaps you will go to the convalescent home in Klosterberg among the villas, Franz. And you can look out from the window, across the fields, to the 2 trees on the horizon. It is the loveliest time of the year now, and the corn ripens. At evening, the fields in the sunlight look like mother of pearl. And the lane of poplars by the Klosterbach, where we used to catch sticklebacks. You can build an aquarium again and keep fish in it. And you can go without asking anyone. You can even play the piano if you want to. I lean down over his face, which lies in the shadow. He still breathes lightly. His face is wet. He is crying. What a fine mess I have made of it with my foolish talk. But Franz, I put my arm around his shoulder and put my face against his. Will you sleep now? He does not answer. The tears run down his cheeks. I would like to wipe them away, but my handkerchief is too dirty. An hour passes. I sit tensely and watch his every movement in case he may perhaps say something. What if he were to open his mouth and cry out? But he only weeps, his head turned aside. He does not speak of his mother or his brothers and sisters. He says nothing. All that lies behind him. He is entirely alone now with his little life of 19 years and cries because it leaves him. This is the most disturbing and hardest parting that I ever have seen. Although it was pretty bad too with Tinian, who called for his mother, a big bear of a fellow, who with wild eyes full of terror held off the doctor from his bed with a dagger until he collapsed. Suddenly Kemmerig groans and begins to gurgle. I jump up, stumble outside, and demand, "Where's the doctor? Where's the doctor?" As I catch sight of the white apron, I seize hold of it. "Come, quick! Franz Kemmerig is dying!" He frees himself and asks an orderly standing by, "Which will that be?" He says, "Bed 26, amputated thigh." He sniffs. "How should I know anything about it? I've amputated 5 legs today." He shoves me away, says to the hospital orderly, "You see to it," and hurries off to the operating room. I tremble with rage as I go along with the orderly. The man looks at me and says, "One operation after another since 5 o'clock this morning. You know, today alone there have been 16 deaths. Yours is 17. There will probably be 20 altogether." I become faint. All at once I cannot do anymore. I won't revile anymore. It is senseless. I could drop down and never rise up again. We are by Kemmerig's bed. He is dead. The face is still wet from the tears. The eyes are half open and yellow like old horn buttons. The orderly pokes me in the ribs. "Are you taking his things with you?" I nod. He goes on. "We must take him away at once. We want the bed. Outside they are lying on the floor." I collect Kemmerig's things and untie his identification disc. The orderly asks about the paybook. I say that it is probably in the orderly room and go. Behind me they are already hauling Franz onto a waterproof sheet. Outside the door I am aware of the darkness and the wind as a deliverance. I breathe as deep as I can, and feel the breeze in my face, warm and soft as never before. Thoughts of girls, of flowery meadows, of white clouds suddenly come into my head. My feet begin to move forward in my boots. I go quicker. I run. Soldiers pass by me. I hear their voices without understanding. The earth is streaming with forces which pour into me through the soles of my feet. The night crackles electrically. The front thunders like a concert of drums. My limbs move supplely. I feel my joints strong. I breathe the air deeply. The night lives. I live. I feel a hunger greater than comes from the belly alone. Miller stands in front of the hut, waiting for me. I give him the boots. We go in and he tries them on. They fit well. He roots among his supplies and offers me a fine piece of salad. With it goes hot tea and rum. Chapter 3. Reinforcements are arriving. The vacancies have been filled and the sacks of straw in the huts are already booked. Some of them are old hands, but there are 25 men of a later draft from the base. They are about 2 years younger than us. Krop nudges me. Seen the infants? I nod. We stick out our chests, shave in the open, shove our hands in our pockets, inspect the recruits, and feel ourselves Stone Age veterans. Kaczynski joins us. We stroll past the horse boxes and go over to the reinforcements who are already being issued with gas masks and coffee. Long time since you've had anything decent to eat, huh? Cat asks one of the youngsters. He grimaces. For breakfast, turnip bread. Lunch, turnip stew. Supper, turnip cutlets and turnip salad. Cat gives a knowing whistle. Bread made of turnips. You've been in luck. It's nothing new for it to be made of sawdust, but what do you say to haricot beans? Have some? The youngster turns red. You can't kid me, Kaczynski merely says. Fetch your mess tin. We follow curiously. He takes us to a tub beside his straw sack. Sure enough, it is half full of beef and beans. Kaczynski plants himself in front of it like a general and says, "Sharp eyes and light fingers, that's what the Prussians say." We are surprised. Great guts, Cat, how did you come by that? I ask him. Ginger was glad I took it. I gave him 3 pieces of parachute silk for it. Gold beans taste fine, too. Patronizingly, he gives the youngster a portion and says, "Next time you come with your mess tin, have a cigar. Chew tobacco in your other hand, get me?" Then he turns to us. You get off scot-free, of course. We couldn't do without Kaczynski. He has a sixth sense. There are such people everywhere, but one does not appreciate it at first. Every company has one or two. Kaczynski is the smartest I know. By trade he is a cobbler, I believe, but that hasn't anything to do with it. He understands all trades. It's a good thing to be friends with him, as Krop and I are, and Haya Vestus too, more or less. But Haya is rather the executive arm, operating under Cat's orders when things come to blows. For that, he has his qualifications. For example, we land at night in some entirely unknown spot, a sorry hole that has been eaten out to the very walls. We are quartered in a small, dark factory adapted to the purpose. There are beds in it, or rather bunks, a couple of wooden beams over which wire netting is stretched. Wire netting is hard, and there's nothing to put on it. Our waterproof sheets are too thin. We use our blankets to cover ourselves. Cat looks at the place and then says to Haya Vestus, "Come with me." They go off to explore. Half an hour later, they are back again with arms full of straw. Cat has found a horse box with straw in it. Now we might sleep, if we weren't so terribly hungry. Krop asks an artilleryman who has been some time in this neighborhood, "Is there a canteen anywhereabouts?" "Is there a what?" He laughs. "There's nothing to be had here. You won't find so much as a crust of bread here." Aren't there any inhabitants here at all, then? He spits. Yes, a few, but they hang around the cookhouse and beg. That's a bad business. Then we'll have to pull in our belts and wait till the rations come up in the morning. But I see Cat has put on his cap. Where to, Cat? I ask. Just to explore the place a bit. He strolls off. The artilleryman grins scornfully. Go ahead and explore, but don't strain yourself in carrying what you find. Disappointed, we lie down and consider whether we couldn't have a go at the iron rations, but it's too risky. So we try to get a wink of sleep. Krop divides a cigarette and hands me half. Tjaden gives an account of his national dish, broad beans and bacon. He despises it when not flavored with bog myrtle, and, for God's sake, let it all be cooked together, not the potatoes, the beans, and the bacon separately. Someone grounds that he will pound Tjaden into bog myrtle if he doesn't shut up. Then all becomes quiet in the big room. Only the candles flickering from the necks of a couple of bottles, and the artilleryman spitting every now and then. We are just dozing off when the door opens and Cat appears. I think I must be dreaming. He has 2 loaves of bread under his arm and a blood-stained sandbag full of horseflesh in his hand. The artilleryman's pipe drops from his mouth. He feels the bread. Real bread, by God, and still hot, too. Cat gives no explanation. He has the bread, the rest doesn't matter. I'm sure that if he were planted down in the middle of the desert in half an hour, he would have gathered together a supper of roast meat, dates, and wine. Cut some wood, he says curtly to Haya. Then he hauls out a frying pan from under his coat and a handful of salt as well as a lump of fat from his pocket. He has thought of everything. Haya makes a fire on the floor. It lights up the empty room of the factory. We climb out of bed. The artilleryman hesitates. He wonders whether to praise Cat and so perhaps gain a little for himself. But Kaczynski doesn't even see him. He might as well be thin air. He goes off cursing. Cat knows the way to roast horse flesh so that it's tender. It shouldn't be put straight into the pan. That makes it tough. It should be boiled first in a little water. With our knives, we squat round in a circle and fill our bellies. That is Cat. If for 1 hour in a year something eatable were to be had in some one place only, within that hour, moved by a vision, he would put on his cap, go out and walk directly there as though following a compass, and find it. He finds everything. If it is cold, a small stove and wood, hay and straw, a table and chairs, but above all, food. It is uncanny. One would think he conjured it out of the air. His masterpiece was 4 boxes of lobsters. Admittedly, we would rather have had a good beef steak. We have settled ourselves on the sunny side of the hut. There is a smell of tar, of summer, and of sweaty feet. Cat sits beside me. He likes to talk. Today we have done an hour's saluting drill because Tjaden failed to salute a major smartly enough. Cat can't get it out of his head. You take it from me, we're losing the war because we can salute too well, he says. Krop stalks up with his breeches rolled up and his feet bare. He lays out his washed socks to dry on the grass. Cat turns his eyes to heaven, lets off a mighty fart, and says meditatively, "Every little bean must be heard as well as seen." The two begin to argue. At the same time, they lay a bottle of beer on the result of an air fight that's going on above us. Kaczynski won't budge from the opinion which, as an old front hog, he rhymes. Give them all the same grub and all the same pay, and the war would be over and done in a day. Krop, on the other hand, is a thinker. He proposes that a declaration of war should be a kind of popular festival with entrance tickets and bands, like a bullfight. Then, in the arena, the ministers and generals of the 2 countries, dressed in bathing drawers and armed with clubs, can have it out among themselves. Whoever survives, his country wins. That would be much simpler and more just than this arrangement where the wrong people do the fighting.
No, we're not letting anybody join, sorry.
Dropped, and the conversation turns to drill. A picture comes before me, burning midday in the barrack yard. The heat hangs over the square. The barracks are deserted. Everything sleeps. All one hears is the drummers practicing. They have installed themselves somewhere and practice brokenly, dully, monotonously. What a concord. Midday heat, barrack square, and drummers beating. The windows of the barracks are empty and dark. From some of them trousers are hanging to dry. The rooms are cool and one looks toward them longingly. Oh, dark, musty platoon huts with the iron bedsteads, the checkered bedding, the lockers and the stools. Even you can become the object of desire. Out here you have a faint resemblance to home. Your room is full of the smell of stale food, sleep, smoke, clothes. Kaczynski paints it all in lively colors. What would we not give to be able to return to it? Farther back than that, our thoughts dare not go. Those early morning hours of instruction. What are the parts of the 98 rifle? The midday hours of physical training. Pianist forward, by the right, quick march. Report to the cookhouse for potato peeling. We indulge in reminiscences. Crump laughs suddenly and says, "Change at Lona." That was our corporal's favorite game. Lona is a railway junction. In order that our fellows going on shouldn't get lost there, Himmelstoss used to practice the change in the barrack room. We had to learn that at Lona, to reach the branch line, we must pass through a subway. The beds represented the subway, and each man stood at attention on the left side of his bed. Then came the command, "Change at Lona," and like lightning everyone scrambled under the bed to the opposite side. We practiced this for hours on end. Meanwhile, the German aeroplane has been shot down. Like a comet, it bursts into a streamer of smoke and falls headlong. Krupp has lost the bottle of beer. Disgruntled, he counts out the money from his wallet. Surely Himmelstoss was a very different fellow as a postman, say I, after Albert's disappointment has subsided. Then how does it come that he's such a bully as a drill sergeant? The question revives Krupp, more particularly as he hears there's no more beer in the canteen. It's not only Himmelstoss, there are lots of them. As sure as they get a stripe or a star, they become different men, just as though they'd swallowed concrete. That's the uniform, I suggest. Roughly speaking, it is, says Cat, and prepares for a long speech. But the root of the matter lies somewhere. For instance, if you train a dog to eat potatoes, and then afterwards put a piece of meat in front of him, he'll snap at it. It's his nature. And if you give a man a little bit of authority, he behaves just the same way. He snaps at it too. The things are precisely the same. In himself, man is essentially a beast, only he butters it over like a slice of bread with a little decorum. The army is based on that. One man must always have power over the other. The mischief is merely that each one has much too much power. A non-com can torment a private, a lieutenant a non-com, a captain a lieutenant, until he goes mad. And because they know they can, they all soon acquire the habit, more or less. Take a simple case. We're marching back from the parade ground, dog-tired. Then comes the order to sing. We sing spiritlessly, for it is all we can do to trudge along with our rifles. At once, the company is turned about and has to do another hour's drill as punishment. On the march back, the order to sing is given again, and once more we start. Now, what's the use of all that? It's simply that the company commander's head has been turned by having so much power, and nobody blames him. On the contrary, he is praised for being strict. That, of course, is only a trifling instance, but it holds also in very different affairs. Now I ask you, let a man be whatever you like in peacetime. What occupation is there in which he can behave like that without getting a crack on the nose? He can only do that in the army. It goes to the heads of them all, you see. And the more insignificant a man has been in civil life, the worse it takes him. They say, of course, there must be discipline, ventures Krupp meditatively. True, growls Cat. They always do. And it may be so. Still, it oughtn't to become an abuse. When you try to explain that to a blacksmith or a laborer or a worker, you try to make that clear to a peasant, and that's what most of them are here. All he sees is that he has been put through the mill and sent to the front, but he knows well enough what he must do and what not. It's simply amazing, I tell you, that the ordinary Tommy sticks it all up here in the front line. Simply amazing. No one protests. Everyone knows that drill ceases only in the front line and begins again a few miles behind, with all the absurdities of saluting and parade. It is an iron law that the soldier must be employed under every circumstance. Here Jordan comes up with a flushed face. He is so excited that he stutters. Beaming with satisfaction, he stammers out, "Stoss is on his way. He's coming to the front." Jordan has a special grudge against Stoss because of the way he educated him in the barracks. Jordan wets his bed. He does it at night, in his sleep. Stoss maintained that it was sheer laziness, and invented a method worthy of himself for curing Jordan. He hunted up another pissabed named Kinderbatter from a neighboring unit, and quartered him with Jordan. In the huts there were the usual bunks, one above the other in pairs with mattresses or wire netting. Stoss put these two so that one occupied the upper and the other the lower bunk. The man underneath, of course, had a vile time. The next night they were changed over and the lower one put on top so that he could retaliate. That was Stoss's system of self-education. The idea was not low, but ill-conceived. Unfortunately, it accomplished nothing because the first assumption was wrong. It was not laziness in either of them. Anyone who looked at their sallow skin could see that. The matter ended in one of them always sleeping on the floor where he frequently caught cold. Meanwhile, Haya sits down beside us, winks at me and rubs his paws thoughtfully. We once spent the finest day of our army life together, the day before we left for the front. We had been allotted to one of the recently formed regiments, but were first to be sent back for equipment to the garrison, not to the reinforcement depot, of course, but to another barracks. We were due to leave the next morning early. In the evening, we prepared ourselves to square accounts with Stoss. We had sworn for weeks past to do this. Trump had even gone so far as to propose entering the postal service in peacetime in order to be Stoss's superior when he became a postman again. He reveled in the thought of how he would grind him. It was this that made it impossible for him to crush us altogether. We always reckoned that later, at the end of the war, we would have our revenge on him. In the meantime, we decided to give him a good hiding. What could he do to us anyhow if he didn't recognize us and we left early in the morning? We knew which pub he used to visit every evening. Returning to the barracks, he had to go along a dark, uninhabited road. There we waited for him behind a pile of stones. I had a bed cover with me. We trembled with suspense, hoping he would be alone. At last we heard his footstep, which we recognized easily, so often had we heard it in the mornings as the door flew open and he bawled, "Get up!" "Alone?" whispered Crump. "Alone." I slipped round the pile of stones with Jordan. Stoss seemed a little elevated. He was singing. His belt buckle gleamed. He came on unsuspectingly. We seized the bed cover, made a quick leap, threw it over his head from behind, and pulled it round him so that he stood there in a white sack, unable to raise his arms. The singing stopped. The next moment, Haya Vestus was there. Spreading his arms, he shoved us back in order to be first in. He put himself in position with evident satisfaction, raised his arm like a signal mast, and his hand like a coal shovel, and fetched such a blow on the white sack as would have felled an ox. Stoss was thrown down. He rolled 5 yards and started to yell. But we were prepared for that and had brought a cushion. Haya squatted down, laid the cushion on his knees, felt where Stoss's head was, and pressed it down on the pillow. Immediately his voice was muffled. Haya let him get a gasp of air every so often when he would give a mighty yell that was immediately hushed. Jordan unbuttoned Stoss's braces and pulled down his trousers, holding the whip meantime in his teeth. Then he stood up and set to work. It was a wonderful picture. Stoss on the ground, Haya bending over him with a fiendish grin and his mouth open with bloodlust, Stoss's head on his knees, Then the convulsed striped drawers, the knock knees, executing in every blow most original movements in the lower breeches, and towering over them like a woodcutter, the indefatigable Kyan. In the end, we had to drag him away to get our turn. Finally, Haya stood Himmelstoss on his feet again, and gave one last personal remonstrance. As he stretched out his right arm, preparatory to giving him a box on the ear, he looked as if he were going to reach down and starve. Himmelstoss toppled over. Haya stood him up again, made ready, and fetched him a second well-aimed beauty with the left hand. Striped postman's backside gleamed in the moonlight. We disappeared at full speed. Haya looked around once again and said wrathfully, satisfied, and rather mysteriously, "Revenge is black belief." Himmelstoss ought to have been pleased. His saying that we should each educate one another had borne fruit for himself. We had become successful students of his method. He never discovered whom he had to thank for this. At any rate, he scored a bed cover out of it, for when we returned a few hours later to look for it, it was no longer to be found. That evening's work made us more or less content to leave next morning, and old Buffer was pleased to describe us as young heroes. Chapter 4. We have to go up on wiring fatigue. The motor lorries roll up after dark. We climb in. It is a warm evening, and the twilight seems like a canopy under whose shelter we feel drawn together. Even the stingy Chad gives me a cigarette and then a light. We stand jammed in together, shoulder to shoulder. There is no room to sit, but we do not expect that. Müller is in a good mood for once. He's wearing his new boots. The engines drone, the lorries bump and rattle. The roads are worn and full of holes. We dare not show a light, so we lurch along and are often almost pitched out. That does not worry us, however. It can happen with bikes. A broken arm is better than a hole in the guts. Many a man would be thankful enough for such a chance of finding his way home again. Beside us stream the munition columns in long files. They are making the pace. They overtake us continually. We joke with them, and they answer back. A wall becomes visible. It belongs to a house which lies on the side of the road. I suddenly prick up my ears. Am I deceived? Again, I hear distinctly the cackle of geese. A glance at Kaczynski, a glance from him to me, we understand one another. Cat, I hear some aspirants for the frying pan over there. He nods. It will be attended to when we come back. I have their number. Of course, Cat. He knows all about every leg of goose within a radius of 15 miles. The lorries arrive at the artillery lines. The gun emplacements are camouflaged with bushes against aerial observation and look like a kind of military feast of the tabernacles. These branches might seem gay and cheerful, not cannon and powder. The air becomes acrid with the smoke of the guns and the fog. The fumes of powder taste bitter on the tongue. The roar of the guns makes our lorries stagger. The reverberation rolls, raging away to the rear and bringing points. Our faces change imperceptibly. We are not in the front line, but only in the reserves. Yet in every face can be read, this is the front. Now we are within its embrace. It is not fear. Men who have been up as often as we have become thick-skinned. Only the young recruits are agitated. Cat explains to them, that was a 12-inch. You can tell by the report. Now you'll hear the burst. But the muffled thud of the burst does not reach us. It is swallowed up in the general air of the front. Cat listens. There'll be a bombardment tonight. We all listen. The front is restless. The Tommies are firing already, says Crowley. The shelling can be heard distinctly. It is the English batteries to the right of our section. They're beginning an hour too soon. According to us, they start punctually at 10 o'clock. What's got them? Says Peter. Their plots must be fast. There'll be a bombardment, I tell you. I can feel it in my bones. Cat shrugs his shoulders. 3 guns open fire close that in our blood a contact is shot home. That is no figure of speech, it is fact. It is the front, consciousness of the front, that makes this contact. The moment that the first shells whistle over and the air is rent with the explosions, there is suddenly in our veins, in our hands, in our eyes, a tense waiting, a watching, a heightening alertness, a strange sharpening of the senses. The body with one bound is in full readiness. It often seems to me as though it were the vibrating, shuddering air that with a noiseless leap springs upon us, or as though the front itself emitted an electric current which awakened unknown nerve centers. Every time it is the same. We start out for the front plain soldiers, either cheerful or mean. Then come the first gun emplacements. Every wood of our screeches. The cat stands in front of the hut and says there'll be a bombardment. That is merely his own opinion. But if he says it here, then the sentence has the sharpness of a bayonet. It cuts clean through the thought. It thrusts nearer and speaks to this unknown thing that is awakening us, a dark meaning. There'll be a bombardment. Perhaps it is our inner and most secret body. Shivers, falls, gone. To me, the front is a mysterious world. Though I am in still water, far away from the center, I feel the whirl of the vortex sucking me slowly, irresistibly, inescapably into itself. From the earth, from the air, sustaining forces pour into us, mostly from the earth. To no man does the earth mean so much as to the soldier. When he presses himself down upon her long and powerfully, when he buries his face and his limbs deep in her from the fear of death by shell fire, then she is his only friend, his brother, his mother. He stifles his terror and his cries in her silence and security. She shelters him and releases him for 10 seconds to live, to run, 10 seconds of life, receives him again, and often forever. Earth. 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 Earth with thy folds and hollows and holes, into which a man can lean himself and crouch down. In the spasm of terror, under the hailing of annihilation, in the bellowing depth of the explosions, O Earth, thou grantest us the great resisting surge of new won life. Our being, almost utterly carried away by the fury of the storm, streams back through our hands from thee. We, thy redeemed ones, bury ourselves in thee, and through the long minutes of mute agony of hope, bite into thee with our lips. At the sound of the first droning of the shells, we rush back in one part of our being 1,000 years. By the animal instinct that is awakened in us, we are led and protected. It is not conscious. It is far quicker, much more sure, less fallible than consciousness. One cannot explain it. A man is walking along without thought or heed. Suddenly he throws himself down on the ground, and a storm of fragments flies harmlessly over him. Yet he cannot remember either to have heard the shell coming or to have thought of flinging himself down. But had he not abandoned himself to the impulse, he would now be a heap of mangled flesh. It is this other, this second sight in us, that has thrown us to the ground and saved us without our knowing how. If it were not so, there would not be one man alive from Flanders to the Vosges. We march on, moving as good-tempered soldiers. We reach the zone where the front begins, and become on the instant human animals. An indigent-looking wood receives us. We pass by the soup kitchens. Under cover of the wood, we climb out. The lorries turn back. They are to collect us again in the morning before dawn. Mist and the smoke of guns lie breast high over the fields. The moon is shining. Along the road, troops file. Their helmets gleam softly in the moonlight. The The heads and the rifles stand out above the white mist, nodding heads, rocking barrels. Farther on, the mist ends. Here the heads become figures. Coats, trousers, and boots appear out of the mist as from a milky pool. They become a column. The column marches on, straight ahead. The figures resolve themselves into a block. Individuals are no longer recognizable. The dark wedge presses onward, fantastically topped by the heads and the weapons floating on the milky pool. A column. Not men at all. Guns and munition wagons are moving along the crossroad. The backs of the horses shine in the moonlight. Their movements are beautiful. They toss their heads and their eyes gleam. The guns and the wagons float past the dim background of moonlit landscape. The riders in their steel helmets resemble knights of a forgotten time. They're strange and beautiful, rested. We push on to the Pioneer dump. Some of us load our shoulders with pointed and twisted iron stakes.
Blood moon.
Others thrust smooth iron rods through rolls of wire and go on with them. The burdens are awkward and heavy. The ground becomes more broken. From ahead come warnings. Look out, deep shell on the left. Mind trenches. Our eyes peer out. Our feet and our sticks feel in front of us before they take the weight of the body. Suddenly the line halts. I bump my face against the roll of wire carried by the man in front and curse. There are some shell-smashed lorries in the opening. Another one. Cigarettes and pipes out. Near the line. In the meantime, it has become pitch dark. We skirt a small wood and have the front line immediately before us. An uncertain red glow spreads along the skyline from one to the other. It is in perpetual movement, punctuated with the bursts of flame from the nozzles of the batteries. Balls of light rise up high above it, silver and red spheres which explode and rain down in showers of red, white, and green stars. French rockets go up, which unfold a silk parachute to the air and drift slowly down. They light up everything as bright as day. Their light shines on us, and we see our shadow sharply outlined on the ground. They hover for the space of a minute before they burn out. Immediately fresh ones shoot up in the sky, and again green, red, and blue stars. Bombardment is coming. The thunder of the guns swells to a single heavy roar, and then breaks up again into separate explosions. The dry bursts of the machine guns rattle. Above us the air teems with invisible swift movement, with howls, pipings, and hisses. They are smaller shells, and amongst them booming through the night like an organ, are the great coal monsters and the heavies. They have a hoarse, distant bellow like a running stag, and make their way high above the howl and whistle of the smaller shells. It reminds me of flocks of wild geese. Last autumn, the wild geese flew day after day across the path of the shells. The searchlights begin to sweep the dark sky. They slide along it like gigantic tapering rulers. One of them pauses and quivers a little. Immediately a second is beside him. A black insect is caught between them and tries to escape. The airlock. He hesitates, is blinded, and falls. At regular intervals, we ram in the iron stakes. Two men hold a roll and the other spool off the bottom wire. It is that awful stuff with close-set, long spikes. I am not used to unrolling and tear my hand. After a few hours, it is done. But there is still some time before the lorries come. Most of us lie down and sleep. I try also, but it is turning too chilly. We know we are not far from the sea because we are constantly waked by the cold. Once I fall fast asleep. Then wakening suddenly with a start, I do not know where I am. I see the stars, I see the rockets, and for a moment have the impression that I have fallen asleep in a garden of I don't know whether it is morning or evening. I lie in the pale cradle of the twilight and listen for soft words, which were soft and near. Am I crying? I put my hand to my eyes. It is so fantastic. Am I a child? Smooth skin. It lasts only a second. Then I recognize the silhouette of Kaczynski, the old veteran. He sits quietly and smokes his pipe, covered in smoke. When he sees I'm awake, he says, "I gave you a fright. There's only a nose cone landed in the bushes over there." I feel myself strangely alone. It's a good catch. He gazes thoughtfully at the front and says, "Mighty fine fireworks as they weren't so dangerous." One lands behind us. Some recruits jump off, terrified. A couple of minutes later, another comes over, nearer this time. The cat knocks out his pipe. We're in for it. Then it begins in earnest. We crawl away as well as we can. The next lands fair amongst us. Two fellows cry out. Green rockets shoot up in the skyline. Barrage. The mud flies high, fragments whiz past. The crack of the guns is heard long after the roar of the explosions. Beside us is a bare-headed recruit in utter terror. He has buried his face in his hands. His helmet has fallen off. I fish hold of it and try to put it back on his head. He looks up, pushes the helmet off, and like a child creeps under my arm, his head close to my breast. The little shoulders heave. Shoulders just like hammocks. I let him be. So that the helmet should be of some use, I stick it on the behind. Not for a jest, but out of consideration, since that is his highest part. And though there is plenty of meat there, a shot in it can be damned painful. Besides, a man who's alive for months and is buried in the hospital. And afterwards he would be almost sure to have a limp. It's got someone pretty badly. Cries between the explosions. At last it grows quiet. The fire is lifted over us. There's not a dropping on the reserves. We risk a look. Red rockets shoot up to the sky. And there is an attack coming. Where we are, it is still quiet. I sit up and shake the recruit by the shoulder. "All over, kid. It's all right this time." He looks round him dazedly. He'll get used to it soon. He sees his helmet and puts it on. Gradually he comes to. Then suddenly he turns fiery red and looks confused. Cautiously he reaches his hand to his behind and looks at me dismally. I understand at once. Gun shy. That wasn't the reason he had stuck his helmet over. That's no disgrace. And he's the man before you who had his pants full after the first bombardment. Go behind that bush there and throw your underpants away. Get along. Things become quieter, but the cries do not cease. "What's up, Albert?" I ask. "A couple of columns over there got it in the neck." The cries continue. It is not men. They could not cry so terribly. It's unendurable. It is the moaning of the world. It is the martyred creation, wild with anguish, filled with terror and groaning. We are pale. Dithering stands. "God! For God's sake, shoot them!" He is a farmer and very fond of horses and gets under his skin. Then, as if deliberately, the fire dies down. The screaming of the beasts becomes louder. One can no longer distinguish whence in this now quiet, silvery landscape it comes. Ghostly, invisible, it is everywhere. Between heaven and earth it rolls on immeasurably. Dithering raves and yells out, "Shoot them! Shoot them! Can't you? Damn you again!" I must look after him. It's kept quiet. We stand up and try to see where it is. If we could only see the animals, we should be able to endure it better. Miller has a pair of glasses. We see a dark group, bearers with stretchers, and larger black clumps moving about. Those are the wounded horses. But not all of them. Some gallop away in the distance, fall down, and then run on farther. The belly of one is the guts trail out. He becomes tangled and falls, and he stands up again. Detterin raises up his gun and aims. throws his rifle on the ground. We sit down and hold our ears. But this appalling noise, those groans and screams penetrate. They penetrate everywhere. We can bear almost anything now. Now the sweat breaks on us. We must get up and run, no matter where, but where these cries can no longer be heard. And it is not men, only horses. From the dark groups venture too long. Then single shots crack out. The black heap convulses and then sinks down. At last. But still it is not the end. The men cannot overtake the wounded beasts which fly in their pain, their wide open mouths full of anguish. One of the men goes down on one knee, a shot. One horse drops. Another. The last one props itself on its forelegs and drags itself round in a circle like a merry-go-round. Squatting, it drags round in circles on its stiff...
I'm thinking I'm gonna end the stream now.
The soldier runs up and shoots it. Slowly.
Yeah.
Humbly it sinks to the ground. We take our hands from our ears. The cries are silent.
I'm gonna end the stream. I'll see you guys tomorrow.